Welcome to My Favorite Bitch, where we talk openly about the good, the bad, and the oh my fucking god ugly of raising dogs, and sometimes other non-canine pets, including the human ones. We might talk about poop, and we might swear, so fair warning. Thanks for joining the pack. Now let's get this ball rolling. For a game of fetch, of course. Hey everybody, I just wanted to let you know up front before we begin that during this podcast we experienced some audio difficulties. My guest Linda and I both live in Virginia and in very mountainous areas. Sometimes that does cause problems with the audio, and I believe Linda was a little bit remote. So I do apologize for the audio wonkiness for this podcast, but it's still a good one. Hey everybody, welcome to My Favorite Bitch, where we share honest tales about the good, the bad, and the crazy, crazy ugly of raising dogs and other pets. Sometimes we talk about our human pets too. Another great canine convo today. I'm so excited to have Linda Boehlen here. Linda and I go back. We'll talk a lot about that. But Linda, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Where are you from? And who is or are your favorite bitches or mutts?
Okay. Well, like you said, my name's Linda Boehlen. I'm originally from Massachusetts, moved down to Virginia about 9 years ago. My husband and I own Pawsome Pet Sitting. We do in-home pet sitting, and we come and we hang out with your animals and take care of them when you can't do it. So I would have to say my favorite.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I would have to say my favorite mutt is my baby Jackson. And my favorite bitch would be my Maggie.
So tell us a little bit about Jackson and Maggie.
Maggie came first. She is a Corgi Husky mix, which is really kind of interesting. She looks very much like a Corgi, but she has the husky tail.
Oh, that's funny.
She thinks that she is 100 pounds and rules everything. We have a little sturdy shirt for her because she has to make sure everything is in order for her.
Wait, how much did you say she weighs?
Oh, she weighs like 20 pounds.
Oh, I thought you said 100. I thought you said 150 pounds. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that's what she thinks she does. She thinks she's huge. Thinks she's the biggest dog around. There is countless dogs that she has put in their place. We have like a Mastiff that lives in our complex that is afraid of her. So
no, I'm telling you, I've said this on
everything.
almost every episode. It's the little dogs that are the ones that you have to be afraid of. They are the ones that are like right out there. So there you go, 20-pounder.
Yep.
And
yep,
Jackson is
absolutely.
By the way, for
he's
our
a
folks
Jack
who
Russell
are,
mix.
I just want to let our folks who are watching and listening know that Linda is like we both live in Virginia in the mountainous areas, and Linda is in a mountainous area right now, so there might be a little bit of lag, so I'll try to not talk as fast as I normally do, just to give a little bit of time. But so tell us about Jackson. Jackson is your Jack Russell?
Jackson is the Jack Russell mix. Yep. He is my baby. We had an adoption event with Angels of Assisi at the complex, and I had seen him online, and I was like, oh, I hope they bring him. And I sat there for 45 minutes before the dog would even look at me with treat. Like, so traumatized by his whole little ordeal. I mean, the thing was only 9 months at the time.
Oh.
Once he turned around and made that connection, though, that was it. He chose me. I chose him. He is my little buddy. He travels with me.
Aww.
You know, we hang out all the time. He's the cutest thing. The director was like, okay, let me warn you. He smiles. And I'm like, okay. She's like, no. He looks like he's going to bite you. She's like, I was holding him one day and all of a sudden he's smiling at me. And I'm like, what's happening? What are you doing? What's going on? And then I realized, no, he's happy. So he does that. He does this like mean looking grin that he does. And it's adorable. And I love it every time he does it.
So for the folks that are listening or watching, Linda and I know each other because Linda, you live in the Roanoke, Virginia area, correct?
Yes.
general
Yep.
area. And my husband and I live there too. And our two late puppies, Sammy and Ripley, rest in peace. We became acquainted with Linda and her husband through pet sitting. So I'm really curious because we've never talked about this. How did you get into watching dogs for a living?
Well, it started with we had two flat coat retriever mixes and they were getting older. When Steve's mom decided she wanted to move down to Virginia, we're like, okay, we're going to be gone for like 2 weeks, packing everything up and getting everything ready to move her down here. Because they were older, I could not in good conscience put them in a kennel situation anymore. One of them was born with hip dysplasia. It's loud, it's traumatizing sometimes. And I was just like, it's just not fair to them. So we hired a company that does exactly what we do. They came in, they took care of our babies while we were gone. And when we came back, Steve was working for Field of Dreams at the time in Vinton, which is a doggy daycare. And he's like, hey, are you guys looking for help? And they're like, actually, we are looking for help. So he came on board first, and I was still doing my insurance agent thing because that's all I'd known for now 16 years. Dealing with insurance and helping people with Medicare and all that. And I was just like, oh, I want to go play with dogs.
Who
When we
wouldn't?
moved from, yeah, I know, right? When we moved from Cave Spring to the Bonsack area, which is basically one side of Roanoke to the other side, the company that we worked for was like, hey, if you get clients out there, we're not going to support you because that's too far for us to go. We're like,
Oh,
okay, well, why don't we just kind of break ranks? So we started our own business, and Steve did it by himself for the longest time, and I would do it like part-time, and he would beg me to quit my job, and I'm like, oh, but I don't know, will we have enough business? And now we have so much business, we have to tell people, hey, look, I'm sorry, we're full. Hey, look, I'm sorry, we can't do it this weekend. Hey, upcoming visits, tell us now, and we'll try and see if we can get you on the calendar. But yeah, it is the most incredible experience that I've ever had the pleasure of doing as far as work.
oh,
So,
nice.
I mean, I get to play with animals all day.
I'm not surprised that you're so busy because so we live in Stanton, Virginia, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours from the where Linda is, and it is crazy. Like I've been trying to get Moxie, we've got a new Labrador Retriever. I've been trying to get her find a daycare for her just like once a week, once every other week, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
jam packed. So we're looking probably to start a relationship with a local pet sitter. We actually started working with the company that you started with for exactly the reason that you just talked about. Our dogs were getting older, and when they were younger, they had gone to daycare, and then they would just board at the daycare overnight. But when they get older, and then you put them in with all of the puppies in the younger
Yeah.
dogs, they're now seniors, and they're getting jumped on, and they would come home injured, that have a
Yeah.
cold tail or a knee, kind of wonky. And that was just because they were getting old. So we didn't feel um at that point that it was just like you, they were just it wasn't really the best environment for them at that age. So we looked to home pet sitting, and it worked out great. You guys were
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I
So your
mean,
company is Pawsome
I
Pet Sitting VA.
yes.
Awesome. Talk to me about like what's a typical day in your pet sitting business career.
Well, it depends on the time frame. We used to say, oh, Thanksgiving was our busiest time, but now since the restrictions have been lifted with the pandemic and everything, people are like, I want to get out. I want to go anywhere. I want to do anything. Plus, all these people adopted dogs in the lockdowns,
Yeah.
and they're like, okay, now I have to go back to the office. Who's going to watch
Yeah.
this dog
Right.
for me
All the
while I'm gone
pandemic
during the
puppies.
day? They're not used to that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I will have anywhere from, 8 to 10 visits, which is a slow day, to 16 to 17 visits, which is a really busy day.
Holy
And depending
cow.
on, yeah, and depending on the need for the visits, sometimes they're overnight, sometimes they're just, popping in to feed cats and change their litter box and look after them, make sure they have water, or sometimes it's walks with a dog. I mean, it really just depends. And we do all animals. We don't just do dogs. We do dogs, cats. We've done chickens. We've done ducks. We've done lizards. We've done fish, guinea pigs, rabbits, birds,
Wow.
turtles. So, I
What is
mean,
your worst one, like the ones that you just like don't like doing?
I would have to say, honestly, I don't think that there's one that I don't like doing. I I, I don't like when there's an abundance of pets
Yeah.
because it's a little overwhelming. So there's one house that and they know exactly what I'm about to say. They call themselves the zoo. So we've always referred to them as the zoo. They have 5 cats, 2 dogs. They had 5 turtles at one point in time. They're down to 3 turtles. They have a guinea pig. They've had bearded dragons. I mean, they've had all types of animals. And I'm
Wow.
just like, oof, running in there and making sure every one of them is fed and every one of them has water. And those who need to go out get to go out. And those who need to do everything else and give them time to cuddle. It's That's a little
Yeah,
stressful.
I imagine.
But honestly, again, if that's the most stress I have, it's not a bad problem to have.
Now, how often a day are you walking dogs? You said you do walking too.
So it depends on the day. Usually there's 2 or 3 during the day that you'll take for walks.
Wow.
Um, there's one that I have every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday that I take for a walk, weather permitting. I,
Yeah.
I don't take her out when it's raining or
Yeah.
if it's too cold or too hot because that's too much on her.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if I had 3 and then I have 3 dogs and I need to do walking with.
Now, do you I'm just fascinated. We've never really talked about the ins and outs, so I'm just really fascinated. Are your clients, is it mostly people that are like taking vacation type of thing, or do you also do where people are like, I work a long day and I just need you to come in and, let them out and that kind of thing?
It's a combination of both. So I have one that I do every single day during the week. It's a 50-minute visit because the commute from the office back to their house is too much for their lunch break to
Yeah.
let these dogs out. And they have an older dog who can't necessarily hold it all day. So I pop in, I let the dogs out, they do their thing, and I let them back in and give them treats. I have people who we've had first responders and a lot of the guys who are on the state police SWAT team. So they can get called up at a moment's notice and they're like, can you go let the dog out? Can you feed him dinner? Can you do this? And
Oh,
we're like, absolutely. I mean, you have no control over that. So
right.
that was a lot of our business during the pandemic because, of course, everybody was home. So
Yeah.
nurses, doctors, first responders, those people like that who didn't have a choice, had to go to work, couldn't work from home. Those were the ones that Steve was doing on a regular basis. So
That's fascinating. I never would have thought, but until you just said it, that that first responders would be like a big client base just because of the nature of their work. Like it's just
yeah,
like you just don't know when you're gonna
yeah.
need. Um, God, there's so many things I want to ask you. I always like to ask people in any job, what is like the craziest thing that you've ever experienced, or like the most funniest, or just like a situation that's very memorable for you in that job.
My gosh. Well, just recently, Steve has always had really, really busy days. He kind of pads the schedule to be heavy on his end and lighter on my end, and I can take care of other things. And then there are some days that I will have the heavier day, but there was a few of them few days in a row that he had overnight. So I took on the extra visits at night, and I'm texting him at 10:30 at night going, all right, 17 visits done. He's like, I can't believe you got that accomplished. He's like, that's awesome. And he had just as many visits before his overnight that I did too. So it gets really, really crazy when we get busy. But I mean, each one is so different. I have a Great Dane that we take care of every once in a while when his dad goes out of town. And this dog is 7, which is really old for a Great Dane.
Yeah.
When he gets the zoomies, you just have to watch out, because here's this 150-pound Great Dane who's just running around the yard and charging at you, and you're like, I'm going to get hurt.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. I've talked on this podcast before about Moxie, and this is when she was like 40 pounds, and she would get the zoomies so bad that she would pummel herself into walls and doors and furniture. I can't even imagine. I would love to see. In fact, I'm going to go on YouTube after we get off this call, and I'm going to look up Great Dane with the zoomies, because I'll bet you it's a sight to see.
I'll have to get a video of it. I mean, Coda's amazing when he does it. I'm like, oh, look out, Coda. Please don't break a leg. Please don't break a leg.
Now, do you, speaking of videos, do you provide like check-ins for people? I know you did with us. Do you like, hey, here's a picture of so-and-so?
Yeah, we still do that. We take pictures and send an update for mostly every visit, depending on, like, if you have like 4 or 5 visits in a day, maybe we'll do like 2 or 3 of them.
Right.
Only because there's only so many times I can tell you they peed and pooed.
Right.
When we hired employees, because we did have a couple employees for a little bit, my whole big thing was, listen, the updates are important. And we very much run this company the way we want our animals to be taken care of.
Yep.
So I want to know that, they're good, but I don't want to hear like, oh yeah, peed, pooed, everything's good. I want it to be, entertaining. So
Yeah.
for me, the updates and the pictures are the fun part. Like, scooping litter is not fun, but the updates can be fun, and I try to be as creative as I can, and constantly I have been going, I love these updates. I cannot get enough of this. I have one family who's like, we all sit around and we're like, we're gonna get an update, and they all read it together when they're on vacation. They're like, this is amazing.
It is so true. I can attest from the other end that it was, especially if I was traveling, and because I think you were watching the dogs. I might have been, can't remember. I was still traveling to Michigan at the time, but we would take longer trips out of state, and it was such a godsend to get those messages. It was just such a sense of relief, like knowing, okay, yes, you came, they're okay, and here's a smiley face to brighten your day. So I can attest, those are so important. So important. Well,
and
if you
even
ever,
when like I have to travel to go take care of my dad sometimes, and if I have to leave Jackson behind, Steve will send me an update and be like, Maggie and Jackson say hi. And I'm like, yay.
well, let's talk a little bit. It's as fascinating as it is to what you do for a living. I want to talk a little bit about Jackson and Maggie. So now, Linda, they're not listening. They don't know which one's really your favorite.
It really has to be Jackson. Jackson is my baby. He's my little boy. I got him October. It was Sweetest Day.
Yeah, Sweetest Day.
I think. Yeah, it was Sweetest Day that we got him. And that October, I was like, all right, cool. We'll get him acclimated and everything else. And that Thanksgiving, my whole family's supposed to come down. We're supposed to have Thanksgiving together, and my mom unexpectedly passed away.
Oh.
So Jack and I load the car, and we go traveling back up to Massachusetts, and he was just my little security.
Oh.
So he does not do well around strange people a lot, and of course there's a ton of people in the house. So I would have this sweatshirt and we'd call it the pouch. And I'd be like, come on, Jane, let's get in the pouch. And he would just snuggle in and be right there in my pouch. And I'm like, oh,
That
but
is
yeah, he was
adorable.
there with me every step of the way. Yeah.
Now, is he friendly to other people, or is he kind of a little more aloof?
He's a little bit more aloof. He will warm up to you after a period of time, but he's not one of those like, oh, come on, come over here and give me pets. It's like, hey, across the room, we're cool.
Yeah.
Don't come any closer. We can have a conversation this far apart.
It's funny because you took care of our dogs Samson and Ripley, and Samson was like that. Samson was just a little moody, and that's why just I think what endeared him so much to me is that you just knew when you got Sammy to show any amount of affection at all,
Oh yeah.
it was like, yes, I
Yep.
got it right. Because they are just a little
Exactly.
more aloof. Oh, that's adorable.
Right. Once they warm up to you and they're like, all right, we're cool. Let's snuggle. It's cool. You can give me scratchies. You're like, oh yes, I've crossed over. I've got it.
Now, do they have like kind of like roles in their household? Like, is one more like the more dominant and maybe like the watcher, or I mean, how what's their interaction like?
So their interaction is really adorable between the two of them. Maggie is very much the, hey, I'm the one in charge. I was here first. This is just the way it is. And Jackson's like, whatever, you can do whatever you want. But they'll both look out the window, and Jackson will freak out if he sees birds or bunnies or other dogs. And every once in a while, Maggie will too. But we're trying hard to curve that. And when it comes down to them just being, in control, it's Maggie's first, and Jackson just kind of follows along, and she's the big sister.
I think that probably is how it happens in a lot of households, because I think it was sort of like that with our two dogs. I think Ripley was first, so she kind of was just like, whatever, I am the in charge here. But Samson would kind of more take on that role, but I think he always knew, like, I get it. I love the dynamic between having a boy dog and a girl dog, because I don't know, for some reason I think it works really well. But
Yeah.
um who's the instigator? Who causes the most trouble?
Maggie. Maggie, without a doubt, Maggie does.
Because
Although
she
it's
knows it.
funny because my dad and my brother now live on a property in North Carolina, and they have like 11 acres. My brother's wife has chickens and roosters and ducks. And I took them both with me a month ago or so to go down there and check on my dad and everything else. And I took them walking around the property, and they finally saw the chickens. And the chickens will free range during the day. And I tried to grab them beforehand, but I couldn't. And they were just like having a ball running around, chasing these chickens, chasing the roosters, I mean, I was just like, they're never going to get eggs again. I've ruined these chickens. And my sister-in-law's like, they're fine. They're fine. So when I came back a couple weeks later with just Jackson, she's like, is Jackson going to run around and chase the chickens? I mean, if you want him to, I'll let him do it. I mean, I don't care.
Well, they're it's a good thing when I hate I love and I hate telling this story, but when I was growing up, I just told it on the last podcast I did, so I apologize to my audience when I tell this again. But when I was growing up, we were country folk, and we had various dogs throughout the year. And if country folk, they're never leashed, they're never penned, unless they're like super crazy. We did have a super crazy
Right.
Irish setter once, but we had labs, and we had a couple of them that and they did catch the neighbor's chickens, and they came back in the back of a truck shot. So it's a good thing that
Oh,
your chicken people, because
yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
they're which is weird for a lab, because every lab I've ever known has not really had a high prey drive. But I guess when you're playing with them hard enough and you do some damage to the chickens, then that's what happens. Well, so that
Yeah.
was a great note for me to go towards. Yeah. So what else? So So you talked about how you got Jackson. Now, how did you, did you mention, I can't remember because you were breaking up a little bit. How did you get Maggie?
So when Steve and I had the flat coat retriever mixes, Steve had one and I had the brother. Steve Salem passed first and Brooks went after. But Brooks was still alive for a while Salem was gone. And Steve walks the dogs for the director of League of Animal Protection in Fincastle. And on the website, they had this corgi mix. Now, he has one client who had a corgi, and he's like, that'd be kind of cute. Toward the end of Salem and Brooks's life, we would have to pick them up and take them outside because their legs weren't strong enough to walk the distance and then go to the bathroom and everything else. That got extremely difficult, physically speaking. I would have carried them for the rest of my life if I had to. If I had that option to take them for the rest of my life, I would have absolutely done it. But I was like, listen, the next dogs we get, they have to be small. So after Salem had passed, a couple of years went by, and Steve had seen this corgi on the League of Animal Protection site, and he went and talked to the director, and she's like, so you're going to come take Maggie home? I think her name was Gabby at the time. And he's like, well, I don't know. He's like, I want to meet her and see what her disposition is like. And she's like, you need to adopt her. You need to adopt her now. And he's like, well, I can't. We're going away. And it's not fair for us to take her on vacation or to leave her behind, just to get her. It's like, if she's still here when we come back, then we'll take her. While we were gone, someone adopted her. So he's like, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. And as we're driving home, he gets the call that they brought her back because she was too much for them to handle. They were an older couple. And he's like, get her. I'm like, absolutely. So he went and picked up Maggie and brought her home. Brooks was still alive. Poor Brooks. Brooks was like 16 at the time, which is really old for a dog that size.
Yeah.
And he barely knew what was going on most of the time. Like, he had that look on his face, like, I see flashes. Wake up in the morning, and Maggie always liked to destroy anything, any stuffies. So any animals like Ripley and Samson did, she will just destroy them, and that's her good time. Well, I see all these tufts of black fur all over the place. I'm like, what is that? Where's that coming from? It's Maggie taking apart his tail in the middle of the night, and he's just laying there like, can someone stop this, please? So yeah, we're like, Maggie, you can't do that.
Oh my God.
But yeah, that was Maggie's second night, and I was like, oh God, Maggie, stop it.
You know what you were in for that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you've you deal with a lot of dogs. I imagine that sometimes with ours, they pass away. I mean, is that hard I mean, because I imagine that you bond to some extent with a lot of the dogs and other pets that you care for on a regular basis.
Yeah, it is. It's really difficult. We had one dog in particular that every time I walked in the house, he would be like, oh, yay! He would just light up, and Steve's like, he never does that for me. Like, so we would call him boyfriend. And I'm like, oh, my boyfriend, yay, we're gonna go see him. And his owner called me, and he's like, yeah, we have to put Snowy down. It's time. He's had a couple seizures and some bad times. And I'm like, well, thank you for telling me beforehand. When Brooks passed away, one of our clients actually made a donation in his name to Virginia Tech's School of Vet. So now that's what we do to honor any of our clients who pass away, is we make a donation, usually to like Angels or to the SPCA, or depending on where they came from. We had one that got a dog from West Virginia, some hound rescue there. So when they passed, we made the donation, and we just send a little, sympathy card saying, hey, in their honor, this is what we've done. And I think that that's one thing that helps make it not okay, but easier, because we're doing something to honor them as well.
That's a great thing to do. And I mean, I can't, again, I can't underscore enough that, people like yourselves, the service that you do for, especially for older dogs, that's because that's exactly what we dealt with. Um, I don't know how you can do it over and over again. I mean, when we lost Sammy and Ripley, we were like, I mean, it was devastating. I mean, I
Yeah.
grieved more and longer for those two dogs than I did for my mom or my brother. Not that I wouldn't give anything to have my mom or my brother back, but when you have somebody in your house every single day, it's just different. It's just, and I
Yeah.
didn't think we would get another one. So it took it was a good year and a half before we started making that talk again. Um, in
And
your
it's hard to transition from that.
yeah, it is. It really is. And there's
Yeah.
no right or wrong answer. So, anybody out there
No.
who's dealt with death and you've made a decision to either get another dog right away or wait or not at all, there's no right or wrong answer. It's all just
No.
how you deal with grief. We didn't think we were going to, but I just I got lonely, I sit at home all day, and
Yeah.
so now we've got the tank, the silver tank. So, and I so wish that you lived closer because um
I know, because when you first got him, I saw pictures on Facebook, and I'm like, oh, he's so adorable.
she's she's so sweet. I mean, she's definitely starting to grow up a little. I mean, she's a lab, so she'll be a puppy for a long time, and we're still challenged with things like when she greets people, she just wants to jump up on them because she loves people so much. But she's grown out of a lot of her really intense puppy stuff, and she's adorable. When you're doing your just this is a question that I have been thinking about. So you over and over, you're working with people and pets and going to their house and doing all these things for their pets. And I imagine, just like you did with us, sometimes you're getting the mail and water and plants and stuff.
Hmm.
Well, is there anything that you continually come across that you wish people either would or wouldn't do that would just make it a little easier?
Yeah. So the one thing I hate doing is looking through people's cabinets for things. So if I need
Oh,
paper towels or cleaning supplies, or I hate, I feel like I'm snooping, and I'm just like, oh, if anybody's watching me, and I walk into every house thinking that this camera's watching me on
yeah.
every move, because a lot of people do have cameras in their house now, and I'll talk out loud. I'd be like, hey, where does your mom keep this? Like, and oh, if only I could find this and not have to go through all your cabinets, this would be fantastic. I hate doing that. So if anybody has any, pet sitters or anybody who's coming into their house, leave like paper towels and cleaning supplies or something on the counter, or a note saying, hey, it's in this cabinet, look here. Because I hate that feeling that I'm snooping.
I feel so vindicated right now because when I leave my husband in charge of the dog for a day or two, I write up like a 2-page anal retentive. Here's where everything is, because he's kind of like a pet sitter in that he doesn't know where everything is, even though he lives here.
Right.
So I put, like in, here's where the enzyme cleaner is in the hall closet, so I'm glad.
No,
I,
absolutely. I
I appreciate
mean,
that.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I could talk to you all day, Linda. We're getting a little close to time, and I don't just like with all my guests, I do have a Zoomies round that I love to go through to ask some fun questions. So I am going to put you in the doghouse in the Zoomies round, and I will start with, where do Jackson and Maggie sleep?
In the bed with us.
And they're little, right? You said Maggie's like 20 pounds, and then Jackson's a Jack Russell, so he can't be that big.
Yeah, Jackson's about 18 pounds. So
Okay.
yeah, they are little. Maggie will sleep sideways though, and she has this habit of trying to kick me out of bed. So she gets, don't I don't sleep in one position. I'm constantly moving.
Same.
So she gets annoyed with me, and she'll just growl and get down, sleep on our puppy bed. She does have multiple puppy beds on the floor. She has other places she can go sleep. But yeah, mostly they sleep in the bed with us.
We're just going through the transition. So we have the crate, and Moxie has been in the crate and with the door closed for quite a while. It's only been about in the last 3 or 4 weeks that we've just started leaving the door open. And she starts off on the bed, and then but I'm convinced that it is because of the same reason, because I constantly switch positions. So she'll fall asleep on the bed next to me because Sean goes to bed later, so it's just she and I initially. And I'll journal, and I'll play on my phone, or I'll read or something. And then as soon as I turn off the light, I thought it was turning off the light that triggered her, but I think it's because I start moving around, and she just gets off the bed. She's just like, oh, you know what? I can't. And so she either goes in her crate, or sometimes she goes on. She's got a little bed too. So yeah, she's I think they're sometimes a little annoyed with our movement.
I know Maggie is.
So do you feed your pets table scraps?
No, not typically.
You're so good.
Jackson's allergic to chicken, so we really have to watch what it is that we do feed them. We have been taking them to breakfast with us like every Wednesday at one particular restaurant because we can sit outside with them. And the wait staff will bring like a little cup of ham. And every week I'm like, is that the ham? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I have to make sure that I know what I'm giving him. But we bring treats and everything else with us too. So
that's interesting. You're the second person that I've had in the Canine Convo who's had a dog allergies. So is it just chicken that he's allergic to?
As far as we know, it is.
But he was getting everything.
Yeah, it is. It is. It really is. You have to really look for food and treats that don't have it.
Yeah.
A lot of the treats that we bring with us on visits and on meet and greets is pepperoni, and pepperoni doesn't have any chicken in it.
Oh.
So that was just, okay, it's pepperoni.
Yeah, interesting. Good to know. It seems like it's more prevalent than I thought.
Yeah.
Pets on the furniture, yes or no?
Yes. Yeah.
Was that a conscious decision? Did you like talk about that when you first got dogs? Was it just sort of a, it just happened?
I think it just happened. I don't think it was a conscious. I know we didn't have a conversation about it. It was just like, oh, they're cute, they're cuddly. All right, they're sitting here. Right. We used to have 2 like love seat recliners, so they were attached together, and Brooks would always sit in the one beside me. Well, my best friend came to visit. She's sitting in the one beside me. We're both reclined. We're just sitting there watching TV, and he's pacing back and forth in front of them. And she goes, what does he want? I go, you're in his seat. She goes, well, I'm not getting up. I'm like, no one's asking you to. All of a sudden, he jumps up and he's like on top of the both of us. He's like, this is my seat, and I'm going to take it back.
That's funny.
Okay.
That sounds about right. Yep, yeah. That sounds about right. Have you ever investigated your dog's poop up close and personal?
Not my dogs, but I've had clients that I've had to. So we had a client who had a border collie who was notorious for eating stuff he shouldn't have. And before she even got him, he had 2 surgeries to remove stuff from his stomach because it was causing a blockage because he'd eat random stuff. So there was one set of visits that I was about to start, and she calls me and she's like, so my husband was supposed to be watching him, and I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden there's an ornament that's missing and something else. So she's like, we have to separate his poop from the rest of the herd's poop so that we can investigate it later. I'm like, did you want me to go through it? And she's like, well, you don't necessarily have to. She's like, as long as it's separated. But when part of the ornament came out, I'm like, here it is. God. So
that's hilarious. I'm sure that we're not the only people, but I found like an everlasting gobstopper in Ripley. She pooped out one time after daycare. I don't know how it went through her. I'm amazed because I've heard other people talk about their dogs ingesting things and having some of them having the surgeries, but it's amazing what actually will come out. It's just like I'm just floored at the digestive system of dogs because
I know it is crazy. Jackson, so with his allergy, what would happen is he'd get like an acid reflux. So he'd be like having that, kind of like a burp constantly, and you could tell that it was comfortable for him. One of the things that I read was, all right, take him for a walk. It's going to distract him. Well, the second you take him outside, the only thing he wants to do is eat grass. So we'd have to literally run around the parking lot to just kind of get his brain to switch off. If it happened in the middle of the night and I didn't know, or Steve didn't know, he would eat a portion of the carpet by our bathroom. So like there's this part that's like bare, and I'm like, really, the carpet of all things, like, please don't let that get caught in your intestines.
I know. And some dogs are so mouthy with whatever, and Moxie's the same way. It's just, she spits a lot out, but I do find occasionally Sammy used to eat, because Sean and I both wear earplugs, and Sammy would poop all the time. He would poop out earplug, like the little foam earplugs. Never had a problem, always came out, but just, I mean, like, he probably went through dozens over the course.
That's
so
crazy.
just, you never know. Are Maggie and Jackson hoovers or grazers?
A little bit of both. So every night they get fed, and my mother-in-law feeds them. She puts their dish down, and they'll attack it, and they'll eat and eat and eat, and then they'll stop, and they're like, okay, now I have to go to the bathroom. So we'll go outside, and then we come back inside, and Maggie gets carrots and Jackson gets beans. Maggie take her carrot and flip it up and chase it and play with it for a little bit, and then eventually she'll eat her carrots, and eventually all the food's gone, and we pick up the dishes and we wash them and leave them for the next day.
Fascinating. You're the first person who's been kind of in between. We, Samson and Ripley, well, Ripley was really the Hoover, but I was really surprised that Moxie is not, she wasn't a Hoover, but she's kind of turning into a Hoover now, because she was very much a grazer for the first 5 or 6 months, but now she seems to be like, okay, getting in like a super appetite, where I don't know why she thinks
And it could just be a growth spurt too. She's like, oh, I'm hungry all the time now.
It kind of, pretty much. Do you have favorite toys for your dogs?
Laser light. They love chasing the laser light. Although Jackson, I think, likes the sprinkler a little bit more than laser light, but he just likes to chase anything.
Do you find the laser light that they get a little obsessive with it?
No, they're actually really good about it. Once we're done, they're done. But I do have other dogs that I've played laser light with, and now it's like every shadow, they're like, up,
Yeah.
up, and they're like, yeah, right, look, can't do that with them anymore. Don't do that with them.
That was Ripley and Samson that you watched, and Ripley would get so obsessed with it that Sean would kind of bait her a little bit, and he would just go, and he would make the sound of the laser turning on, and she would immediately like go, looking around like, where is it? So we've avoided that with Moxie, because we don't want that kind of obsession.
Right.
What are your pets' nicknames? What are your favorite nicknames for your pets?
Oh my God, Jackson has like a million of them. It's Bubba and Baby Boy and Boo Boo, and I mean just everything. And Maggie's just Maggie May. The Magster.
Right? Doesn't everybody do like some sort of like a name and then like a May or a Moo or a, because we had Ripley Roo and Moxie's Moxie Moo or Moxie Blue, and yeah, there's always some good one.
Well, the funny thing is, when we got Jackson, I was like, oh, what should we make his middle name or whatever? And I'm like, well, my dad's middle name is George, so Jackson is Jackson George.
Oh, that's cute. Does Maggie have a middle name?
May.
Maggie. Oh, Maggie May. There you go. Perfect.
Maggie
I love it. Who is the pack leader in your house?
Maggie.
Maggie is.
Maggie, but Steve really tries.
And who is the human that you've had to train the most?
My mother-in-law.
And is she a good student?
She's pretty good. She rescued a dog that was from a puppy mill. So this poor thing, the first 8 years of her life, she was just put in a cage and bred continuously. So she didn't know what life was like outside that cage. And for who my mother-in-law is and taking that dog, she gave her the best life she possibly had. She was never the right dog for her. She wanted something to cuddle with, and Summer was just not a cuddler because of her background.
Yeah.
But she learned a lot. Summer learned a lot. Summer learned a lot from Salem and Brooks. And when Maggie and Jackson came along, it was almost like, hey, there's these puppies and they're playing and I want to play too. And you're like, Summer, you're 13. Like, you need to slow down. And now she's got a new puppy named Snickers. So it's like that whole learning about a puppy all over again, and what to do and what not to do and what the best course of action is. And she really is listening very well. I mean, I was hoping that she'd hold off on getting a puppy until after our vacation in October, but this one came along and she loves him. So
you know what? I'm glad we did it this last time, but I'll never do a puppy again. Never. It's going to be adult rescues from this point on. Cause it's
rough sometimes.
It's a lot of work. I really was not
forget.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And you know, we got Ripley. So Sammy was a little bit older and we already had Ripley. He was like almost 5 months when we got him, but Ripley, we had at 8 weeks old and we worked. So, it was just different. I thought it would be easier working from home. It's not at all. I was like, what is going wrong? I raise dogs, you know, but no, never
and that's
again.
what it is you forget.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, but they're so cute and they have the puppy breath and it's adorable to watch them grow up. And,
exactly.
And you get it and you're like, oh, I'm never doing this again. And, you know, years goes by, like, maybe a puppy wouldn't be bad.
I mean, I find this hilarious that I actually thought when I got her, I thought I'm not going to have any accidents. That's how good of a dog mom I'm going to be. And it was like the second day was like, you know, she had 2 of them and I'm like, okay, forget that. It's not even happening. So
Jackson went and peed on my brother's bed when we were traveling once. And I was just like, oh. Like, I didn't expect him to do that, but all right.
I know. Well, she did too. She with the first night that we first started leaving her crate open, she got up on the bed and she was doing this scratching thing, which she does a lot when she's trying to settle. And she had just been outside. She had just peed. It was bedtime, and then all of a sudden, she's literally like next to me in Sean's spot, and I just look over and she's squat. And peed. And I'm like, what in the ever loving is she doing? I don't know. Maybe trying to put her scent in because it's such a strong scent in beds. But fortunately, she hasn't done it since. But man, I was like, really? Yeah. Right next to me. But oh well. Well, Linda, it has been such a pleasure talking to you and just seeing you. I miss you so much. I wish we lived closer.
Me too.
I'm so glad we keep in touch on Facebook. But thank you so much for being here today. If anybody wants to get in touch, anybody in the Roanoke area, it's Pawsome Pet Sitting VA, and it's pawsomepetsittingva@gmail.com if anybody wants to get in touch. But thank you so much, and we'll love to have you on the show again and share more fun stories.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, everybody, thanks for listening and watching, and now go play fetch or take a nap or scratch on your pack leader's bed and take a pee. No, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
All right, take care. Thank you for joining My Favorite Bitch, where we don't hold back about what it's like to raise that little fucker of a pet. We hope you had fun. I'm your host, Beth Ann Campbell, and you can reach me on Instagram or Facebook as TheBean67. That's TheBeann67. And also on Instagram as Moxie Blue Yule. That's my dog's site, she insisted. I'm also on LinkedIn as Beth Ann Campbell, that's Ann with an E, and check out my YouTube channel, Beth Ann Campbell, where you can find this podcast and other fun videos on the playlist My Favorite Bitch. Remember, we are not trained dog professionals in any way, so please consult the real experts and do your research on anything you hear on this program. We barely know what we're doing. Now go give your pet some snuggles, and we'll catch you after a good nap and some tasty treats. My Favorite Bitch is produced by Beth Ann Campbell and is a product of Beth Ann Campbell, LLC, all rights reserved. Go fetch Moxie. Good girl.